All right, so today we're diving deep into a figure who's, well, she's really stirred up a lot of conversation online.
Yeah, no shortage of opinions about her, that's for sure.
That's putting it lightly. We're talking about just pearly things.
Real name Hannah Pearl Davis, but yeah, online it's all just pearly things.
And look, you probably know her from, I mean, some of her videos have gone viral, right?
The hot takes, the debates. Yeah, she's not exactly shy about sharing her opinions.
But this isn't about slapping a label on her, like trying to fit her into a box. We're here to figure out who is just pearly things.
What's the story behind those strong opinions? And I think what's really interesting is how much contradiction there is with her.
Oh yeah, she's definitely a bit of a paradox, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I mean, just on the surface, you've got this young woman who's built this impressive online empire, right?
For sure. And we're not just talking about a few viral TikToks here. We went deep, like really deep for this.
Oh, yeah.
Video essays, podcasts, we even found some old news articles,
We even dug up some of her early family vlogs.
which those were interesting to say the least.
They paint a very different picture, of her background.
Let's talk about that because I think that's where things start to get, well, kind of complicated.
Yeah, so from what we gathered, just pearly things, she grew up in, get this, a 10-bedroom house
Whoa, 10 bedrooms.
with a water slide.
Okay, that's not exactly the image that comes to mind when you think of, someone who champions traditional gender roles and all that.
Her parents, both successful software engineers, so definitely a picture of privilege.
But then you've got her advocating for, women taking on these submissive roles, staying at home. It's like, wait, hold on a second.
Big disconnect there.
Her own mother, I mean, from what we saw in those vlogs, she seems like a total boss lady, like CEO of a multi-million-dollar company.
It makes you wonder, right? What
Yeah.
happened? Was there some big event, some experience that, totally shifted her thinking?
Or was it more of a, slow burn, gradual thing?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
And I think this is where that term, manosphere starts to come into play.
Right, and from what we've seen, just Pearly Things content, I mean, it definitely aligns with a lot of the ideas floating around in those online communities.
Which, for anyone who's not familiar, this is basically this online space where, the idea is that men are disadvantaged, women have all this power, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's all about traditional gender roles, men being the provider, women being submissive, and it's Pearly Things, she echoes a lot of those views.
We see it in, some of her most, shall we say, controversial statements. Women shouldn't vote. That was a big one.
Yeah, and there's the one about, most domestic abuse being mutual, which, just to be clear, experts have totally debunked that.
And these are the kinds of things that got her, a lot of attention, both positive and negative.
She went from those pretty wholesome family vlogs, baking cookies, going on vacation,
Through, breakup quizzes, giving relationship advice.
then full on, red pill rhetoric, aligning herself with figures like Kevin Samuels.
Another, shall we say, colorful character in that online space.
So the question becomes, what drew her to this in the first place? Was it genuine, or was it more about, tapping into an audience?
Because let's be real, there's a market for this kind of content. Maybe she saw an opportunity.
It's hard to say for sure, but it's a question worth considering.
Because to really get just Pearly Things to understand her,
Yeah,
you got to grapple with these contradictions, right?
absolutely.
I mean, here's this woman who, on one hand, she's built this business, she commands an audience. That's empowerment.
But then she's also pushing these ideas that, a lot of people see as limiting women's choices.
It's a puzzle, and we're going to try to piece it together throughout this deep dive.
We've got a lot more to unpack here.
We're going deep, folks. Get ready for some aha moments, because this is just the beginning.
And, the deeper we go with this, with all the stuff we looked at, the more these contradictions they kind of jump out at you.
Yeah, it's not just, like we said, her background versus what she's saying now.
It's almost like she's contradicting herself sometimes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like she's all about, women being happy, finding fulfillment.
Right.
But then she drops this line, and I'm quoting here from one of her videos. Women like to be cheated on.
Whoa. Okay, that's one that I definitely remember from the research. I mean, where is she even getting that from?
It's a classic example of, I think, how she has some of her arguments. They just don't hold up.
They're not based in, any kind of reality.
Exactly. Show me the evidence that women enjoy being cheated on. It's a harmful stereotype,
It ignores Like the actual pain, the betrayal, all of that.
And, to be fair to her, she did try to walk that one back later, said it was taken out of context.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Which makes you wonder, right? Is this like a strategy? Throw out something super controversial.
Yeah, people talk
And then later you're like, oh, no, no, no. You misunderstood me.
Yeah, could be.
Or does she really believe this stuff, but just, maybe doesn't always think it through before she says it?
It's tough because these topics, gender roles, relationships, it's sensitive stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And, it's not just the relationship stuff that's gotten her in hot water.
Right, we got to talk about the elephant in the room.
The slavery was embellished comment. That was a doozy.
I think that's the one that really put her on the map. Like mainstream media, everyone was talking about
You
it.
got her deplatformed from some places too, right?
Yep, and it sparked this whole debate about, free speech, where do you draw the line, all of that.
I mean, just to be clear, saying that slavery was exaggerated, it's not just insensitive, it's just straight up wrong.
Yeah, it's minimizing like the actual horrors that people went through.
And it's like she didn't offer any evidence, any historical context, nothing.
I remember watching that clip, and when they pressed her on it, she basically just shut down, said she didn't want to talk about it.
Which, again, makes you wonder, is it all just about provoking a reaction?
Throwing out these bombshells and then walking away from the explosion.
Because that might get you attention, but it doesn't exactly build credibility.
No, it makes it hard to take her seriously, when she's talking about these important issues.
Yeah, and then there's the whole, Nick Fuentes thing.
Oh, boy, yeah, we got to get into that.
I mean, our sources, they show that she had him on her shows, platformed him, even defended him, called him a nice guy.
Which, for those who don't know, Nick Fuentes, he's got a pretty well-documented history of, let's just say, problematic views.
Yeah, white nationalist rhetoric, that kind of stuff.
Not exactly someone you want to be associated with, especially if you're trying to, build a brand around female empowerment.
It's a turning point for sure, because a lot of people, even some of her supporters, they saw it as a betrayal.
Yeah, they felt like, wait, this isn't what you stood for before.
And the backlash was intense. Lost sponsors, faced criticism from, all sides.
Even her former co-host, Sarah Garvey, she went public with some pretty serious accusations.
Yeah, that whole thing with the contracts, Garvey claiming that Just Pearly Things was trying to take more than her fair share of the money.
Which, if true, I mean, that really feeds into this narrative of her being a, what do they call it, a grifter?
Someone who's just exploiting all this outrage for personal gain.
The controversy queen.
And the more famous she gets, the more scrutiny she faces, right?
It's like a runaway train at this point.
Yeah, and it seems like she's, kind of imploding under the weight of it all.
So we've got this fascinating, frustrating, maybe even a little tragic figure at the center of this.
Right, but the question is, what does it all mean? What can we learn from all of this?
That's what we're going to tackle in the final part of this deep dive. Stay tuned. All right, so we've gone through a lot with Just Pearly Things.
Yeah, we've covered some ground, that's for sure.
The contradictions, the hot takes. I mean, where do you even begin?
It's a lot to unpack, but I think if there's one thing that keeps coming back to me, it's her own word.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What she said herself about, why she does what she does.
If we ignore that, if we just focus on the outrageous statements,
right,
I think we're missing a big part of the picture.
She's been pretty open about, struggling with self-esteem, feeling overlooked.
Yeah, even that whole thing about, wanting to understand what the boys are talking about. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, like she felt like she was missing out on something.
It's almost like she's giving us the blueprint to, how she ended up where she is now.
Like step 1, feel insecure. Step 2, seek validation. Step 3, find it in the manosphere.
And that's the thing, right? As messed up as some of those ideas are, for someone who's feeling lost, vulnerable,
yeah,
that message that, women should submit, it can actually be, kind of appealing in a twisted way.
It gives you a role, a sense of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's, based on some pretty outdated ideas.
Exactly. And I think for Just Pearly Things, that's part of what drew her in.
It was like, here's a community that tells me it's okay to feel this way.
And here's how you can be valuable by fitting into this specific mold.
Which, I mean, we've seen how that's played out, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, those statements, the women shouldn't vote, the slavery was embellished. It's like she's pushing buttons.
Intentionally provoking people.
And you know what? It worked. People got angry, they shared her videos, they commented. All of that just amplified her message.
Even the negative attention, it still plays into the algorithm.
It's engagement, it's views, it's all fuel for the fire.
But, playing with fire, it's dangerous.
Oh, absolutely. Eventually you get burned.
And I think that's what we're seeing now.
The demonetization, the bans, people turning on her.
It's like it's all catching up to her.
Yeah, the consequences of building your platform on outrage.
So where does this leave us? We started this deep dive wanting to understand just pearly things, to go beyond those surface level labels.
Right, to get a clearer picture of who she is, what makes her tick.
What do we take away from all of this?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's a reminder about, echo chambers online. They can be really seductive. They offer a sense of belonging.
You find people who agree with you, who reinforce your beliefs.
But it's easy to lose sight of, other perspectives, critical thinking.
Yeah, you get trapped in this bubble.
Which is why, and this is the second takeaway, it's so important to, really analyze your sources.
Don't just take everything at face value.
Exactly. Look for evidence. Consider the motivations. Don't fall for those generalizations and logical fallacies.
You got to sharpen those critical thinking skills, folks.
And lastly, I think it's important to remember that, what we see online, it's just a sliver of the whole picture.
People present a certain version of themselves.
Just pearly things. For all her privilege, for all her success, she was clearly struggling with some deep insecurities.
And her story, as extreme as it is, I think it reminds us that everyone's got their own stuff going on.
Yeah, so maybe we can approach online interactions with a little more empathy, a little more understanding.
Because you never know what someone's going through behind that screen.
So as you keep exploring online, keep these lessons in mind. Question your assumptions. Seek out diverse viewpoints.
Remember, the best conversations, the ones that really teach us something, they happen when we move beyond those simple narratives.
When we embrace the complexities, the messiness of the human experience.
Well said. We hope this deep dive gave you a new perspective on just pearly things, the manosphere and, all the stuff that's happening in our online world.
Keep asking those questions. Keep exploring.
And keep diving deep. We'll see you next time.